Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Ponytails Podcast. This is your host, Andres Gamboa. Thank you for listening. If you're a returning person, if you've heard multiple episodes, thanks so much for listening. We do appreciate that. It means a lot that you have found joy in the show, and that you have enjoyed all the episodes. A quick little recap of what we do and who we are. If this is your first episode, we interview people who sold books with Southwestern Advantage. It's a company that recruits college kids to go door to door selling educational systems and books to families who need help with homework. So all of our guests are people who have done this program, sometimes 80 hours a week for like 12 weeks of the summer on straight commission, and sometimes not even a place to live established yet, but this is how they spend their college summers. So hopefully you guys enjoy. We've had some amazing stories over the course of the life of the show. It's been a blast. We've cried, we've laughed. It's been a blast. So hope you guys enjoy. My guest for today is Javed Bhaghani. He sold for 5 summers in 1990, from the 1990s to 1994. So those 5 years. Oh man, what a good year, 94 for the Force organization. He unfortunately, we'll say unfortunately, was from the Eagle Blitz organization. We love to give him a hard time just because we've had so many Eagle Blitz people on the show. But we love all of our guests have been from there. He is one of the owners of Biscayne Hospitality. It's a phenomenal company from what I hear. Thanks to our producer who did a little bit of research on it. It's beautiful. If you go check out their LinkedIn, their Instagram, their Twitter, their Facebook, you can find out for yourself. We're going to hear a little bit more about what that is and what they do here in a second. He went to University of Houston. He calls Houston home, and his favorite scroll is number 3. I will persist until I succeed, which has been a fan favorite. A lot of people like that one. We love it too here. So we'll be back with Javed in a little sec. Ponytails Podcast. Hello, hello.
Hey, Andres.
Hi. Thanks for being here.
Oh, thank you for the invitation.
Oh, it's so cool. Oh man, honestly, I every time we do an episode, I say this every time, but I just can't believe my job. I get to talk to book people for a living.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like I told you before. I think you're doing something incredibly valuable. You're bringing happiness to people through nostalgia, and I think that's just amazing, Andreas. Very much supportive of what you're doing. I think it's great.
I appreciate it. And we're not alone in this. Thank you so much for all the team that we have here on the show. We have 6 people. Thanks
Wow.
to all of you guys who work really hard for this. Shout out to Nick, who helped me out initially. And
Yeah,
for sure, Boca Productions, who does our video editing. So thank you so much to
awesome.
all the team. I owe it to them.
That's
They're
awesome.
awesome. Yes, sir. Well, thank you for being on the show. Let's dive right on in.
Okay.
Normally, we'd like to start catching up with what you're up to now. So you left Southwestern in '94. I always like to ask, as much detail as you want to go into. How did you end up over at Biscayne Hospitality, and maybe just kind of go through the major highlights that you've had in the last few years that brought you to today?
Okay. I'll give you the little bit longer story since we have some time.
Sure, that's
You
great.
know, um, what's interesting, I'm somewhat philosophical, so you hear kind of some of this going through. But what's interesting is, we tend to make a lot of decisions in life. But as you reflect back, I think there's certain things that you kind of really didn't decide on, or you flippantly made a decision that has incredible impact. So
Yeah.
sometimes we think we're making all these great decisions, but the reality is sometimes it just kind of flows. So I was sitting on a bench in ninth grade at high school, Klein High School, and one of my friends, Jack, we were just talking as a little, wet-eared freshman. Hey, what are you doing? And he goes, well, I'm going to join Junior Achievement. And I said, well, what's Junior Achievement? And I said, well, he goes, it's a business school. And basically that's all he had to say is the word business. And I was kind of in tune. So I was very excited about that. So I went to join that club at high school. And then, I was already selling shoes at Kenny's Shoes as a kid. So I joined the sales competition for Junior Achievement. And in 12th grade, right at the end, they had a competition for all the high schoolers on their selling skills. And, so I went to that. I won it, of course. But the but there was a judge named Mike Holsey who said, "Hey, you need to go sell books door to door." And I said, "Well, what's that?" And I said, "I'm not interested." At the time, one of our family friends owned like 4 or 5 dry cleaners. I had my pager, you know, and I
Yeah.
was excited. I thought I was a big man on campus. Had to, So I was managing those 6 dry cleaning stores, and he kept persisting on me going to sell books door to door. He had me meet
As
with
we get taught.
J1, and I blew him off. And then right around May, he said, you got to do this. And I said, look, I'll make you a deal. If you can talk my dad into this, I'll go. You know. So I go to my dad's office, downtown Houston, Greenway Plaza, and I'm like, Dad, this guy Mike, he just keeps calling me. He's driving me crazy. Can you just call him and let's get it over with? So I remember this. I'm staying at my dad's door. I'm like, okay, good. I outsmarted this guy. I'm going to get out of it. This is great. And he's talking to my dad, and my dad hangs the phone, and says, I think it's a good idea that you should go. I'm like, crap. That's the last thing I wanted to do. But anyways, I quit the job that I was working at. 2 weeks later, I'm smoking triple fives, crying all the way to Nashville. Being first time on my own. So that's kind of how it started. My book, and I had to quit smoking the first time I had to run up that hill. I almost died. So
Yeah.
that was a quit smoking program pretty quick.
Have you smoked since?
No, not really. I don't really smoke
It
anymore.
worked.
But as a kid, that was one of the things you did back in the 90s, smoke cigarettes.
That's right. And it worked for you. If you want to quit smoking, go sell books door to door.
Go sell books.
That should be one of the added value, like, in
Oh
terms of
man,
telling you all the positives.
that hill was just terrible.
It's the steepest hill. I mean, I've seen steeper hills, but for some reason it's still, you've seen it, but it doesn't feel as steep as
Yeah,
that hill going up to the
yeah.
War Memorial.
Oh, with your little book bag and stuff, and
Trying to
so
not hit business people walking through downtown
exactly.
Nashville.
I mean,
Hey guys, hope you're enjoying the episode so far. I know I am. I wanted to give a quick shout out to the people that make this show possible, the people that bring this show to you. These are people who all sold books, and we're here to give a quick shout out to them in a spotlight about their company and what they're up to. So if you're interested, or if after listening to this, you're kind of wanting to know a little bit more, feel free to click on the links below to connect with these people. These are from an excerpt I have with them from a podcast that I do on the side. It's called Executive Exercises, where we take all our sponsors and they come into a think tank and share some awesome ideas about how to grow their business specifically on different topics. Go check that out. But I pulled some of the comments that they had explaining what they do and who they're looking for on their companies. And so if that sounds like you, like I said, click below. Hope you enjoy. So yeah. And so money wise, and it just seemed like it was going to be the leads, which I wanted to go back to that because you mentioned this, and that's another thing that maybe Southwestern people don't understand is leads. That's kind of like you're saying, basically, imagine you show up to a town to sell books, you send a postcard out to every single family that has kids in school or young children, asking them if they struggle with any of the following subjects, yes or no. Would you be interested in hearing about a product that might help you with all those subjects, yes or no, name and address, and then you just waited at your HQ for like a couple of weeks, and then you got in the mail like 700 people returning that postcard saying, "Come to my house. Here's where I live." Hi, are you the mom of the house? Yes, and we've heard of you. Great.
Yeah. Is this your
Let's
handwriting,
let's
Miss Betty? Yeah, that's my
yeah,
handwriting.
yeah,
You got a few minutes? It's again, you're not selling every single lead that you sit down with, but the leads is kind of what interested me because that kind of anxiety feeling that I talked about at
yeah.
Southwestern and the anxiety I had with Family Heritage, I honestly didn't think that was going to go away, but it has. It's gone away when I sold. I still had a little bit of anxiety, but after that first knock, it goes away. But much less anxiety every week because I know I have fresh leads coming in. And so even if this day doesn't work out, I know I got typically our agents will get anywhere from 25 to 50 leads a week of people that they can go and call on.
I want people to understand what it is that you do, how you do it, why you do it, all of the good stuff. You hear a lot about coaching, you hear a lot about life coach, sales coach, business coach, yada yada coach.
Man, I think just to start off, like what it isn't, it's not training. It's not showing up and
Yeah.
having somebody talk at you for 45 minutes to an hour. And like the way that I look at it is we're all human beings. We're all broken in some capacity. And we all know a lot of the people that I work with, they know what they're supposed to be doing. They're just not executing on it, or they're not doing it as intentionally as they should be. Or they're just not focused. They have like 15 different goals or 15 different things that they're trying to balance or do, and because of that, like they're not as intentional as they should be at home, or they're not as intentional as they should be at work, and they're not picking up the phone and calling people. And it's like having a personal trainer for your business. It's having intention on why we do what we do every day, and creating clarity and helping to build our lives and our calendars around what our future goals and intentions are.
That'll do for now. Like I said, make sure you click below to get some more information. And now back to the show.
So that was good. And so then I go. So my first summer, I think I'm in Youngstown, Ohio, and I found out they put me in what they call a blast off headquarters. And
Okay.
so blast off headquarters is they definitely saw me and said, this kid's not making it.
Yeah, you're gonna go home.
You're going home. So they put me with the other 2 people they thought are going home, and we had a super great headquarters with 3 people who were already predetermined to go home. Yeah. So the other 2 quit. I'm sitting there, I manage it through. And so I sell that summer. I have a pretty good summer, but towards the end of the summer, you start thinking about God, because you're away from home. That's generally what happens. Your faith kind of comes into play. And so I went to the mosque and I met a guy named Nazif, who was going to college in Youngstown, and we stayed in touch over the years, back and forth, and so after Southwestern, after the 5 summers, I went to go work with Tom James.
Lovely. Okay.
The affiliate company, which is kind of an interesting story because they had a pretty good recruiting tactic. And so I'll tell you that. But so after that, at Tom James, I worked there for about 9 years. But 2 years into it, I told my boss, Osh, I said, Osh, I want to run my own office, And so they said, okay, do this, this, and this. You can run your own office. And so they gave me a chance to say, hey, San Diego or Toronto. You can go to either of those places. And so I went home. I said, Mom, I have to go. I'm sorry. I know, I'm your favorite child, but I have to go. And so you choose. You tell me which one, which city. She goes, I go, Toronto or San Diego. She goes, San Diego. I said, okay, fine. I'm going to San Diego. So just as I moved to San Diego, Nazif, the guy I met on the book field, says, I have the perfect woman for you. And so he introduced me to my current wife, Tabassum, that I've been married to almost 25 years, since 98.
Oh, man.
Right. So, and then going into moving to San Diego, I met a couple of years, right after I got married, I met my current business partners that we went into business with in 2003. So back to the original origins is that it was some stupid decision, right? I'm sitting on a bench and I'll just join that club. And you can see that one thing, kind of led me to exactly where I am today. And I always like thinking about, those things, because I think we're making all these decisions, but sometimes the ones that you're not really thinking about are the ones that are really taking you where you want to go.
It's incredible how the life works that way. I read a quote, or it was a meme or something this morning, and it was like, in the movies, when people go back in time to change the future, like time travel movies, it's like they go back, and then one little decision that the characters make in the past have big implications. I mean, any movie in the past that you've seen, like just one little thing, and it changes the outcome. And we totally would believe that. Like, when we watch a time traveling movie, we think, oh my gosh, absolutely, that's what changed the course of everything. But then it's funny because we're in the present now, making those decisions for our future that would have the exact same amount of impact, even in the littlest thing. And we don't think that a small decision today can make that big of an impact in the future. We're keen to believe it when it's a fantasy film about time travel. But if you were to tell most people today that that's what they're doing with their decisions, with their choices, they won't believe it. Isn't that strange?
Yeah. It is strange. And, it kind of comes back to, the awareness, and reflection, I think, is a really big aspect, that I've tried to do a lot in my life, is kind of reflect back, and see how things kind of play out, because it's a really great way to educate yourself for the future.
Yeah, absolutely. A common theme that we've had over the course of all these episodes that people have said one way or the other is one of the biggest things that they learn from Southwestern is to know themselves, which is something most successful people do a really good job at, is knowing and being completely aware. Like you said, awareness and reflection is a key to that. And so, fantastic lesson to learn at a young age.
Great. it's a great lesson to learn. I mean, I always tell the people around here is that the greatest change around you is the greatest change within you. That's where it starts first.
Mm,
If
that's
you really
exactly
think
right.
about it, not a lot of things change. The stock market, the environment, not a lot of things change. The only thing that really changes is your perception of things. So
Yeah.
the greatest change
Yeah.
is within you.
Yeah. The classic Southwestern, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Yeah.
That's right. Exactly.
It's so
That's
good.
exactly right. That's exactly right.
Wow. So many questions about this. So, I wanted to follow up on the story because we can get into
Okay.
Southwestern details in a minute, but
Sure.
I wanted to follow up on the story that you said about your recruitment with into Tom James, and then I have a
Yes.
couple other follow-up questions too, but
Okay,
we'll start with
perfect.
that one.
So what happened was, is I was, the Tom J. I mean, the Southwestern thing. They send you to the recruiter. I think it was Mark at the time, and they're like, "Hey, how you doing? You making a decision?" And I'm like, "I don't know." Blah blah blah. And so they kind of move you into the directions they want. Obviously, you're kind of young and
Yeah.
green, and so I remember because I learned this after I got recruited, right? That they did the takeaway clothes, you know.
Yeah.
So, but before they did the takeaway clothes, they said, well, they knew I had a big impact with my father was a big influence in my life. I think they kind of figured that out. So Ash calls my dad, says, "Hey, let's go have lunch," you know, and they're we have lunch, da da da. This Ash gives him this cheap, probably cost him $2 or nothing, tie to my dad. My dad's all excited, and it's called the law of reciprocity, I guess. So
Yeah.
after the lunch, my dad's like, "I think you should join them." I'm like, Dad, you got me to go sell books door to door with a phone call with Mike Holsley. You sell me off to Osh for a freaking tie. I mean, geez, do I have any value in this world? Like, come on. And so I was still vacillating a little bit, and then Mark says, "Well, they don't want you anymore." And you tell any book guy, or gal, hey, they don't want you anymore. I
Oh
mean,
boy.
talk about the ego popping and go, what do you mean they don't want me? Tell them I'm coming. And that's kind of how Tom James got me because they did the takeaway clothes. So
If people are taking notes as full timers right now, take
yeah,
notes. This is
they have all the tricks in the bag, guys. Don't worry, So
they know what they're doing.
they know
Oh
what they're
man.
doing.
And so, okay, so that's that. I love that story. The next, if I ever need you to be on the show again, I'll just offer your dad like a cool T-shirt,
Yeah,
Ponytails T-shirt, and
exactly.
get you back. So with Biscayne Hospitality, tell me about. So you met your business partner,
Mhm.
and how did you?
How did it kind of
I guess
formulate?
walk me
You know,
through the story of like kind
okay.
of that form, and also if you could, as you're going, if you can at some point, the differences that you learn from building a business from scratch versus just running your business when you're selling books, when a lot of things are already and systems are already in place. So
Okay.
if you could give us kind of that perspective on it
All right. If
as
I
you're
get off
going through, that'd
track,
be
kind
great.
of bring me back so I can
Oh yeah,
address them.
that's what
Okay.
I'm here for. We're here to
All
listen
right.
to you. Nobody
So
cares about what I'm saying.
So when I went to San Diego, it was always pretty well known that for many many years, even at Tom James, I made it pretty clear that I've always had an ambition to run my own business. I mean, that was kind of even when they were recruiting me, that was part of the. So we when I came into town, again, altruistic motives tend to also pay off for you. I said, I'm getting
Yeah.
married. My wife's going to come to town. I got to probably get to know some people who are not single and partying all the time. I should probably get involved in some type of community. So I got involved with a mosque that was just developing in town, and that's where I had kind of met some people, and I felt like okay, the Boston can meet and kind of have this community to start with because she's moving so far away from Canada. It's better to try to get her some people that she can get to know and quickly so she doesn't miss home as much. So from there, I met one of my business partners, Mahmoud, and his brother, Hatham, and we had started a new mosque. We had built, we'd started a new center. And, that was in 2003. And we started a little bit sooner, excuse me. We started around, I met him in around 99, 2000. We started a new center in 2001. And right around 2002, I told him, I said, hey, I really want to start my own deal. I want to, and I'm looking at this medical supply store. So I had already started kind of doing some research in San Diego. And he said, hey, that's funny. because I was looking for his advice. He said, we're looking at starting a business ourselves, my brother and I. Why don't you join us? And I said, kind of nice. Which was appealing because they were senior executives. They were really, well funded. I mean, they were great partners to learn a lot from, and also had some financial backing, for what it takes to do a business. So we went into we bought some retail stores in San Diego that we knew nothing about. Wacky Wicker is what they were called. My wife made fun of me. She goes, "Why are you buying furniture store? You know nothing about it. That has nothing to do with your experience." I said, "Oh, we'll figure it out. Bookman mentality, right? We'll figure it out. We'll make it happen."
3 positives, honey.
Yeah, yeah, we'll do it. So we, when we bought those businesses, which is great, and I remember we acquired them in August of 2003, and by December of 2003, I was going nuts sitting in a retail store. I just couldn't do it. I mean, selling bookstore to door, knocking on doors, and at Tom James, going out and seeing executives. I mean, doing everything to proactively get business. The retail side of it just definitely did not bear well with me. Right? I was just going nuts.
Yeah. It's too passive.
And so I told my partner, I said, listen, one of the unique things about this business is they were buying furniture directly from factories in Asia, not through distributors in the US, right? So there's kind of this, so there's sometimes retail stores will buy from companies who stock the furniture in the US and they just pull the inventory. This particular lady was pretty smart. She was buying furniture directly from the factories and importing it herself. So that was kind of the advantage. So by December, I told my partner, I said, listen, I can't do this. I've got to go see what is going on at factories. I got to see what's happening. So we went to China, all dressed up in my Tom James suits, which is silly as hell. Okay. They don't care for that. Sleeping without a net, which killed me, tons of mosquito bites, that's how ignorant I was. But anyways, China was okay. But then we went to the Philippines and I went to the factory and they said, I said, and they were already manufacturing furniture for hotels, whether it was in Europe and some parts of the United States. And so the furniture business that we had bought was all specific, like rattan, the Hawaiian rattan furniture, that you see in Hawaii and kind of the resorts. And so I said, well, look, can you make anything, like anything I want? Like, you show them picture. Yeah, we can make, okay, we can make all that. That's awesome. So I said, okay, that's great. That's very good. You can make it, and you're already supplying hotels? Okay, that's good. So I came back to San Diego, joined the Hotel Motel Association, right? And followed up with my first client for a little hotel in San Diego, 17-room boutique hotel. And we did all the furniture manufacturing for that little renovation on Coronado Island here in San Diego.
Oh, nice.
And so that was kind of our first foray. And then every day that I was going to that property, because I said, look, I'm going to only focus on one hotel project because I want to learn this business. I'm not going to do anything else. I'm just going to do this one hotel project. And I gave myself 12 months to do it. And the retail was doing the retail thing, I kind of whatever, Mm-hmm. And every day I would look across the street to the Hotel Del Coronado, which anyone who knows Hotel Del Coronado, it's one of the most historic hotels in the country, right? It's one of the most historically known hotels. I'd always think, oh, one day I'm going to do that. One day I'm going to do that. So, but anyways, after doing that one hotel, we got another couple small projects, and that's about when the housing market dropped, 2008, 2009. Mm-hmm. And so retail was decimated. So we, I was, crying to my mom. Of course, you're feeling like miserable because you just have to sell off your business for Wacky Wicker. She said, don't cry, you got it. And in the meanwhile, we had formed Biscayne Hospitality right around the same time. I said, we're going to separate the retail from the hospitality. And that's exactly when it happened. So end of 2006, retail was dying. 2007, we were just starting the hospitality side of it, And so that was kind of the saving grace. We took what you call the diamond out of the rough, to kind of say, okay, we're going to get rid of retail and we're going to focus on custom hospitality manufacturing. And I ended up doing the Hotel Del, about a year and a half.
I was going to ask.
I ended up doing
nice.
That put a big feather in our cap. which kind of helped us start having a national presence on that, on that market. But I do
So
remember.
that was like the big mom of the house. That was like the principal of the
That's right. That was kind of your, that was the principal of the school, if you're talking about Southwestern, right? Hey,
yeah.
he bought
Uh,
that kind of thing,
yeah, that was the principal
Uh,
and the cop.
that's right. Everyone bought
A
it.
principal and a cop, they both bought.
That's
Oh
right.
man.
I just remember what I do remember though is that if we're talking about people out there who are wanting to do this, I just remember that in 2007, as I was kind of going through this, 9, 10, kind of as we were fighting through this crisis, and it kind of dragged on till 2012. I just remember we were kind of about a couple months, maybe 30 days, maybe 60 days, maybe even less of cash to operate even the current business, Biscayne Hospitality.
And
And
was it
I do remember, and I'm being transparent because I want people to learn from this. It's not because I'm talking about anything other than the transparency, so people can learn that. I do remember going back, and there's two lessons I learned out of that time frame. I remember that in 2000, right around 2011, 12, we were very ready to close the business. I just remember going home and saying, "Okay, honey, we're gonna have to sell our house. Get rid of the big house we had. We're gonna move into anything we can." And I remember looking at whatever money I had, which I think I had like maybe 140,000 in some reserves, 401k money. And I said, okay, I can survive 1 year with that. We'll downsize our house, and I can
right.
survive 1 year on that income, right? And I had 2 little kids,
Mhm.
and I said, okay, I can do that. I will. And the reason I'm sharing that is because it just reminds me that you have to get to that level of commitment sometimes to really achieve what you want. So once I was ready to throw it all in, right?
Yeah.
That's
Full
kind of
commitment.
that's the bottom, right? You're like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm giving up the house. I'm giving up I'm going to use whatever savings I have. I'm committed to whatever, needs to happen,
Yeah. Because
and I remember, yeah,
that's legit like a bet on your future.
yep,
If it's $140,000 gamble on the future, because if it doesn't work, not only are you out of money, but you're also out of future money.
yep,
That's your
yeah,
retirement. That's your net worth in the like when you want to retire. That's all gone. On the other hand, if the bet works, which it seems like it did,
yeah,
which of course it did, that paid off, and you won big on the other. And so it's a high risk, high reward at that point. But that's complete
absolutely,
commitment to
yeah.
yourself and what you can do.
Yeah, you
That's
have to, and
amazing.
and you just kind of remember, you kind of like, well, you know, a lot of people try to think about all the potential possibilities when they start a business or go off on their own, right? But the reality is the one you don't think about is the one that's going to kill you, you know.
That's
And so you kind of have to remember that you're not going to plan it out. That's not the way it works. You're not going to be able to plan every event. What you have to remember is that you have to have the confidence that when you get there, you'll figure it out.
yeah,
And a lot of people tend to um, hesitate because success doesn't always come in the way you think it's going to come, right? Sometimes you have this plan. Okay, well, I'm going to go knock on these three, whatever and if it doesn't work out that way, you kind of maybe give up or think you're not going to make it. But never give up, because success will always happen, but not in the way that you think it will happen. And I think
yeah.
that's an
So
important that's for people to think about.
oh, I'm glad you mentioned that too. That's such a wise piece of advice that it helps you understand to be fluid but committed.
Right.
And you can be both, right? You can be both if you have a goal and you're chasing it, but the goalposts change sometimes, and that's okay. That's okay. You're still heading in the right direction. It's
Yep.
just that maybe the goalposts just shifted a little bit,
I
and
mean,
just
yeah,
being prepped.
yeah, exactly. I mean, if you're a captain of a ship and you want to go from New York to London, you may have to take a detour on the storm, but you're still going to get to London, right? I mean, you just have to have that level of commitment of getting
Right. And I love what you said too. It's you can't plan every possible scenario, right? Have you read the book called The Black Swan?
there. No,
It talks
no,
about the things that happen that really change history are usually things that people never expected. The
right,
pandemic, right? 9/11, things like that, or at least American history anyway, in with that regard. But the pandemic for the world history, right? And nobody saw that coming, and it's because it's the thing that nobody saw coming that it had such a giant impact. So the trick is not to be prepared for everything, but to, like you said, just be confident. I love that you said that. Be confident that you're going to be able to handle it when it happens. Ah, that's
Mm.
so good. That's so good.
Thank you, Andre.
Thank you.
Well, there's only 3 reasons why people change, right? I mean, you know, yeah, you just get up one day and decide to change, which is
Mhm.
hard, right? Number 2 is someone says you have to change, like, hey, you're going to change. And number 3, a catastrophic event makes you change, and personally, I'd rather decide to change than have things forced upon me to be changing. So, that is something that I like to do, is to always think about how I can change, how I can improve, how I can do something different, because I don't want someone to tell me, what I need to be doing different or be forced to do something. And I learned that lesson as a kidney transplant. I'm one of those too.
Whoa. Oh my gosh.
Yep.
Like, tell me about that. That's what? What?
So in 2008, as everything's crashing, I mean, just imagine the stress
Oh
levels
man.
here. I'm told that I have to have a kidney transplant, and so I go in the hospital, and I have a really great brother-in-law who kind of volunteered to give me his kidney, and it's from a birth defect, Andreas. So it kind of
Wow.
reared its head right at 38. But I just remembered in the hospital bed going, the why me? Have you been to that? Why
Mm,
me? Why me? Why not her? Why not them?
yeah.
Why does this happen
Mhm.
to me? What,
Of course, it's me.
what,
Why me? Yeah.
why me? Why me? Why did I get my, why did someone shut that door? Why am I not selling? Why, all these pity things that we have that go through. I remember going through that. And I remember right after I went through my little pity session, I remember the doctor coming in and saying, hey, you know what? Um, this is the worst rejection we've ever seen. And, your mind's blowing at this time. Like, well, what does that mean? Well, we'll have to take the kidney out. We don't know what to do. I mean, this is terrible, right? I mean, you know, black, bad, like Black Death. I mean, just terrible, terrible news. And
Mhm.
so I remember very clearly at that point, I said, I need to be grateful. I need to be grateful that I had the opportunity to get this kidney. And I started thanking that opportunity. I started thanking the kidney to be there. I started thanking my body for accepting it. I started turning my attitude around that whole, you know, and a week later, you know, we're good, and here I am. So
Oh my
I
god.
think it's kind of, always taking that everything bad that happens, there's always a great reason why it happens. So I do believe that everything that happens to us is for good reason. And if I didn't have that situation, I believe that I'd probably be in much worse health, because now I have to watch my health more than I did before, right? And sometimes we don't realize the benefit of things until later, but it's always good to reflect back and say, that was the best. I believe everything that happens is for our best reasons.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Ugh. It reminds me of the horseradish story. Have you heard of that
No,
horseradish?
I haven't.
There's a dad and is a kid and a dad, and they're working for a farm. So they own this house, but they don't own the farm.
Right.
And they're working at this farm. It's radish farm, and it's like in China, I think, or something. And anyway, so they have one horse, and the
I
dad's
do.
kind of
I've heard this. I
you know
actually had.
what
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
yeah, great
Yeah.
story. The dad's injured. The horse it runs away, and so
Right.
the kid goes and tells his dad, "Hey, the horse ran away. This is terrible." And the dad's like, "I don't know. I can't tell if it's good or bad.
That's
Just
right.
give it time." The
That's right.
horse comes back, has a bunch of horses with him.
That's right.
He went and rallied horses. The kid's like, "Oh my gosh, we can be rich. We can just breed horses. We're gonna be rich, Dad. Oh my gosh!" And then the all the horses die or something, and then the dad's like, "I can't tell if this is good or bad yet." Like for
Right.
everything good and bad that was happening, perceivably good or bad, and it ends up with eventually the kid ends up avoiding death because of all these circumstances to
That's right.
shorten this story. But it's kind of that same idea where it's like it's not good or bad. It's just life. And
It's just life.
maybe it's just how
Everyone
you
has
choose to look
problems.
at it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
everyone has something, whether it's, and it just comes in different phases. So it's not really the problem that's the problem. It's how you view it and how you attend to it. That's really what the issue is.
Oh, this is so good. Thank you so much for sharing this. Brad, we're crushing it here. This is so fun.
I hope I'm
Well,
not
let me
talking too much, Andreas.
Nah, you're doing
Right.
great. This is awesome. As long as you're having fun,
I'm
I'm good.
having fun.
If you get bored, you tell me. We can end it. But I'm gonna have a blast here.
No, I'm
Um,
having.
let me ask you this. So I pulled this up. Let me put it on the screen. Okay, this is your Instagram story. Is this correct? Is that I go to the right
Yeah,
place?
yeah. So
Okay.
getting back to yeah, okay. So
So
again, I
what are you
feel
guys
like
up
I've
to
diverged
now?
on so much stuff.
Oh
Huh?
no, it's good. I'll guide you. So what does Biscayne Hospitality look like? I mean, we started again in this small one hotel in San Diego. What does 2022 look like for you guys? And I do have a follow up question about how you survived COVID because the
Okay.
hotel industry took such a
Yeah.
dump. But
Yeah. Okay.
we'll get to that. What does 22 look like for you guys now? Because this is like this is so
We're
beautiful.
doing great. I mean, we run many projects a month. We run anywhere
Wow.
from Caribbean to Hawaii, and we manufacture the hotel furniture, lobby furniture, some public space furniture for mostly boutique hotels all across the country. You
Okay.
know,
So this is like
so
higher end,
higher
nice
end 4 or
looking.
5 star boutique hotels, and we have a whole team and production quality control team, project management team that helps execute these projects from concept
Wow.
to delivery.
Look at this. This
Yeah.
is incredible. If you guys are just listening, if you're on the audio only, you guys can tune in to our spot. And on Spotify, you can check out the video, or on YouTube if you want to check this out later, or just go visit Biscayne Hospitality on Instagram. 32 minutes in, and you guys can see the screen I'm sharing if it's just audio only. But this is some beautiful furniture that you guys have on. Look at
Well,
Philadelphia.
yeah, I mean, it's all pretty cool. We've done like Petco Park here. We've done some of their higher end spaces. We've done things in Miami. We've done things in Hawaii, the Caribbean. All over the country. If you pull the drawer, if you're ever staying at a hotel and you decide to spend a little bit more money, and if it says Biscayne Hospitality on the nightstand, that's us.
Oh my gosh. Wait, hold on. I have a question. This is
Sure.
maybe we need to talk about this behind when we're not recording. But if I was to go to a Padres game,
Yeah,
do you guys have the hookup there? Do you have is
I
how
do
do
have
I
season tickets. Just come on down. We're right behind home base.
Where were you
Anytime
this
you want.
last postseason? We should have had you on here in July so I could have
Yeah,
caught some games in the playoffs if you get
anytime you
those.
want, Andreas. You're welcome. I'd love to, take you out there. I don't even have to be with you. You can take you and your significant other, whatever you want. You got 2 tickets anytime you want.
No, I'm gonna go see Fernando. Well, unfortunate for what happened with him, but
Yes,
yeah. But
anytime.
Manny Soto,
Yeah,
I'm in there.
anytime,
I'm gonna
anytime,
go.
anytime.
Did you get to go to the postseason games?
I didn't go to any of the postseason games. I was thinking about it. I didn't.
Oh man.
I kind of cut it off right before. I didn't think they were going to make it. I was kind of not really paying attention. So
We
so I
need
said,
the Dodgers.
the problem is I have these season tickets, and the truth is out of all the games, my team here. I mean, we use probably 20 of the games, and the rest of them don't be, and so I'm like, eh. So it's kind of a mistake for not me doing that, but I was just looking at, are we really using them, and should I spend the extra, thousands of dollars to buy the postseason tickets? And I was like, you know. So I'm a
Okay.
fan, but I'm not a crazy fan.
Okay, that's fine. That's okay. I'll be the crazy fan in your stead
Okay, all
when
right,
I
fair
go.
enough.
Oh, it's just a flight to from Portland to San Diego. Can't be that much. I'll be
Super
there.
easy. Probably if you buy in advance, it's probably $100.
Oh, I'll be there. I'm so there. You have no idea how committed I
Okay,
am
well, I'd
to
love to
this.
see you. Come on down.
Absolutely. So, okay, all right, sorry. Total tangent there. Okay, back to some stuff about what you guys are up to. So, I imagine like I kind of alluded to this. The COVID era had to have been a little maybe scary, or I don't know, was it scary for you guys since all the hotels kind of took a pause and said, "Whoa." Um, what was that like for you guys, and how did you like navigate through this uncertainty period for still even 2 years now?
Yeah, I mean, so look, remember that time when we're ready to close business, back in 2010, 11, 12,
Yeah. Oh
right?
wait.
You learn from that, right? I mean, every experience that you have in life, if you have a big goal in life, if you have a big dream, then you have to believe that everything that happens to you is preparing you for that big goal,
Mm,
right? So when 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 2010, 11, 12 hit, I'm like, okay, well, I guess I have to learn how to manage this if I want to hit my big goal, right? And then when COVID hits, you're like, okay, I learned a lot from there. I'm going to apply some of those principles. But in order for me to hit my goal, I probably have to manage an event like this, And so
Mhm.
you always believe that everything that happens is kind of a preparation to the bigger goal.
Mm.
But the way it kind of worked out is, the reality is we had to lay off like 4 people, which is
Mm.
about 20% of the team. The partners decided that, look, we don't need to pay ourselves for the next year or two, so we scaled back on that, and we kept a big part of our team. We kept 80% of our team, and we had so much momentum going into 2020. It worked out. 2021 was soft a little bit, but we run it lean, and we don't, we're not. I guess we're not. We don't waste money and on silly things. And then in 2022, it's come back really strong. We're going to have one of our best years ever. So it's just a matter of, making sure you have some reserves, I guess, when you're building business, just like for your personal, you always got to have reserves for your business. And I do
Beautifully said.
remember, I do remember that my wife was telling me since January of 2020, like, dude, you don't see this thing coming. I'm like, again, bookman mentality. Oh, well, whatever, and I should listen to her more. For out there, for all those who don't listen to their spouses or significant others, listen to them. So by March 1st, we started seeing some of that, and I remember telling my business partner, we had a lunch. I said, draw every cent from our line of credit, pull it right now,
Mm.
and put it in reserves in addition to what we had. So that was kind of the lucky break, is that we pulled the reserves because I was afraid of the lockdown on credit, right? Banks, remember
Yeah.
back, and so I just pulled that to kind of keep in reserve so we have enough of a runway to manage what was going to happen through the COVID timeframe.
Wow. Well, that's good leadership. That's phenomenal leadership right there.
Well, it's good
Very
listening, at least. I wouldn't say it's leadership. It's good listening from for my wife.
That's a lot of it, though. A good leader takes advisors and counsel well.
That's
That's
true.
great.
That's true.
That's good stuff. That's
So
okay. And actually, and this is good to. I had Nick kind of explain this a little bit too, but it's because I've been in the insurance industry before. For people who are listening, like, how do you make 115% commission?
like, the way I explain it to people is the insurance companies we represent. So we're a broker. All these companies we work with, they know they're not really going to be making any money off the sales that I make for the first several years. But they don't
Right.
care about that. They know these clients are going to be on the books for 10, 15, 20, 25 years. So they know they're going to make money over the long haul. And so part of the reason agents are able to make so much is there's all these companies out here and they're all competing for the broker's business, because these companies don't actually have their own in-house sales force. They have independent contractors. And so if their compensation or their commission levels that they offer aren't competitive, I'm not going to place any business with them.
Hello. Off schedule moment. Wanted to tell you about Southwestern Real Estate. They're 99% drama free. Only 99, not 99.9. So it's a bit spicy. Kind of like this episode. Anyway, they will learn you to kick ass at real estate. So make sure you guys click the link below. Get in touch with them. Okay, back to work. Bye. What's the North Star? I mean, you guys are here in 22. One of the best years you guys have ever had. Been in business for 14, 15 years.
Mhm.
What's the next 15 look like for you guys?
Well, the next 15, we plan to at least double what we're doing today, so that would be part of the primary goal. We also have in 2020, again, I'm being very transparent. We actually started a logistics company too, because I was
Oh,
twiddling my thumbs a little bit, on in COVID during hospitality. So we invested in a logistics company to start managing all the products that we're bringing in from overseas. We're not going to do it third party anymore. We're doing it through our logistics company. So we kind of created that business too,
whoa.
to kind of start what you call vertically integrating some of the work. So that's been going pretty well. So I'm hoping that'll kind of improve and take off over time. But and that's called certain logistics. But what the plan is for me is, look, in the next 4 years, I really would prefer to be out of the operational game of our business. I don't want to be in the operations as much. I really want the team to kind of rise up and take over the operational side of the business,
Mhm.
and I don't want to be doing that as much. I want to work on the strategic side. That's kind of the goal for me. And it gets to the at 50, it gets to the question is how big is big? How much is a much? I mean, I ran a calculator. I mean, look, I mean, for all those out there, I mean, if you have a goal to have $10 million, I don't know if you realize that you could draw $27,000 a month for the next 30 years of your life with no return on that money and drain it out. You'd have to take 30 years to drain out $300,000 a year if you invested none of it. So you kind of ask yourself, well, what's enough, right? What do I really need? Am I going to eat any differently? Am I going to live in any different house? Am I going to really drive any different cars? So that's been a lot of my thinking, in terms of, so whatever growth and whatever the business does is not so much personally related in terms of my lifestyle or what I have to do. It's really more about, I love the aspect of helping people. I love watching people grow and develop personally and professionally, and watching them develop and grow. And our company has been more of a platform for that than furniture. I mean, I get more enjoyment out of helping people grow and develop and seeing their potential than I do on delivering a project. I mean, that's the truth. I really enjoy watching
Wow.
people grow.
That's really cool. That's a cool place to be in your life, where you're trying to think of the next part of your goal setting has to do with enjoying passing the baton. That has to be a really fun place to be. So congratulations. That's so
Yeah,
awesome.
well, that is the goal. I mean, it's hard to do. I mean, it's like giving up your baby. I mean,
Yeah.
it's very difficult to do, and it takes a lot of awareness. To say no, you got to let go of that. You got to trust. I mean, you got to trust they'll do it. I mean, the old adage is look, if they can do it 90% as well as you can do it, but saves you 100% of your time, so be it.
Go for it. Yeah.
Go for it.
That's
And
phenomenal.
so it is hard to do, and it takes a lot of work to let go of that. But I enjoy being a coach. I love coaching 19 to 35-year-olds in terms of things that I would have liked to know, or mindset things, or philosophical things that would have really helped me more at that age. So I really want to spend more time in doing those type of things alongside with the team members that I have, doing more of that. That, like I
Yeah.
said, that you can see it in my voice. It gives me such enjoyment. And I
Yeah.
believe, look, a business to do well, guys, it's not about my pocketbook. A real business, in my opinion, a definition of a really great business is a business that can benefit everyone, right? So not only benefits you, it benefits your team members, it benefits your suppliers, it benefits your customers, it benefits everyone, and not just you. And so we even have a foundation that we even pay for the kids to go to school at the factories, because the laborers don't make enough. The people making furniture don't make enough to send all their kids to school, so we pay for that. Even though we don't own the factories,
Wow.
we pay for them to go to school, because we believe that that is a big part of what our mission is, to make sure that our success is everyone's success.
That is so cool. That is not, I can't think of any other company that I know of that is doing something like that, where you're paying it forward to the people that manufacture your goods. That's so cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's important. I mean, look, they have lives, they have dreams, they have to eat, they have kids. I mean, just like you, why are they any different? And if you're in a position to help them, you should. It never,
Definitely.
generosity and charity never takes away from your own pocketbook, as much as it may feel like it does. It never does.
I love that. That is so cool. Congratulations. That is Biscayne Hospitality. Again, guys, go check it out on Instagram. And I wanted to ask you a couple of things
Sure.
before we go into some Southwestern stuff, but dealing with business from maybe uh, from a standpoint of, if someone's out there starting a business that they're maybe nervous about, from like, they got the sales part down, they're book kids, they know how to do the sales part. What are some suggestions as far as maybe the non-tangible stuff that we didn't get taught about, like the legal side of things, or the accounting side of things, or the logistic systems building type of thing? Any words of advice on how to best go through that, or learn about that, or the books that you read, or people that you got coached from, or anything like that?
Uh, I have to think about it. But look, the reality is all that stuff works out. You figure that out. Like the how-to stuff. I mean, just believe that will happen, right? what doesn't work out as well is if you're not thinking through the key elements of your success, which would be number one, is you have to have the financial wherewithal. Most people fail in business because they don't have the financial wherewithal. Look, I told you my personal story, right? I mean, you kind of have to be able to make it, you know? It's
Yeah.
never a product or an environment or market or all the things that people like to tell you this. It really is just a matter of time, right? And when you hear that education is the most, business is the most expensive education, that's what they're saying. It takes time and sometimes investment and takes losses and takes, oh crap, I can't do that again, right? So most businesses, in my opinion, fail not because of the idea or the effort. It's because the person comes home at night and they can't pay their mortgage or they can't pay their lighting bill. And so you're almost forced to give up, right? Like, hey, and go get
Yeah.
a job. So whenever you start a business, make sure you have enough runway for at least a year to year and a half or 2 years outside of your own business investment. I mean, imagine if you didn't have to worry about bills for a couple of years, how would that
Yeah.
look? You'd be fine, right? You wouldn't worry about it, right?
Yeah.
The second thing is make sure you have a supportive partner, right? I had a great partner to help me. She managed the kids. She supported me 100%. She didn't want the super high end stuff at that point. You know what I mean? I mean, she
Mhm.
really supported what I had to do and what I was trying to accomplish, and made those sacrifices. So I think that's important, right? And if you're gonna have partners, I would tell you make your what I call oh shit agreements before you start the business. So my
Mm.
partners and I made a lot of agreements like, well, if it doesn't work out, what are we going to do about it? Now, how are we going to arrange that? If one wants to get out, how do we arrange that? If, so we really made a lot of arrangements of the, if things don't work out, what are we going to do today while we're in our normal senses and agree to that and make sure that's in writing? You see, because
Yeah.
once you're in the moment, just like you're having a disagreement, it's very difficult to come to agreement because the emotions and I did more than you, and I mean you get into all this stuff. But the reality is you have to have agreements with your partners prior to embarking on the business to have all your scenarios, as many as you can think of, worked out. You don't get along.
That's
Okay,
brilliant.
great. You are not doing your fair share. How do we address that? What's the mechanism for that? Right? Your wife wants to get involved in the business. How do we deal with that? Right? So you got to kind of work out all your scenarios that could take you off track, and just make sure you have a solid written agreement with your partners. Oh yeah, we talked about that. Okay, here's what we agreed to. Okay, got it. We're good. And so just make sure that you're doing some of those things. Hiring an accountant, I mean, the basic business things, right? I mean, look, if you have a lot of good strengths, try to get people who can help offset your weaknesses. I mean, that's a big part of
Mm.
it. A lot of times people will go into business with people they have strengths with. Well, why? Because they get along, because they both have the same strengths. You see? But in a
Yeah.
business, that doesn't always work, right? So don't always go into business with people who you love and who are great and we're best buddies, because you're best buddies because you have the same strengths. That's generally what's attracting you to each other, right? So you maybe want to think about people who can complement what you're doing. You may not agree with them on how they communicate, and they may not be the greatest salesperson, but who cares? You are. They are really good with the numbers. They're good with the operational stuff. They're good with other things that complement what you need to do. So in my arrangement, they never questioned me on the sales end of the business. And I really didn't question them too hard on the operational side of the business, because you see, and that's how we were
Yeah.
able to kind of stay in our own lanes.
Oh, that's brilliant. It's a brilliant piece of advice right there. Just walking through all the scenarios when you like each other, when you're not at each other's throats, because we're not guaranteed, but there could be a day where not good.
Well, here's what happens. Let me tell you, in partnerships, I'll tell you what happens. In the beginning, money is the most important value, right? When you're in a partnership, right?
Right.
The money person is the most important person, right? But over time, knowledge becomes the most important person. You see?
Mm.
So if you have a partner that just gives you the money and you're doing all the work, there'll come a time within, a few years where you're like, okay, that partner's not adding any value anymore because I know what to do and we're already making money. So how do you view that partner now?
Useless.
Exactly. And that's where the disagreements start. So just remember
100%.
that when you have partners, right? That again, I don't want to repeat but money's the
No,
most
this is great.
important, but knowledge is the trumping factor in a business partnership over time.
Brilliant. Oh, this is gold. This is the kind of stuff that you don't really hear other places. I don't feel like I don't, people, we work hard, study hard, be coachable. Got it. But then what happens when real life happens? When your partner decides, hey, I gave you my money. That was my value. Now you got
Right.
nothing. How do you have
And then
those
all of a sudden you're like,
conversations?
hey, I'm making all the sales, I'm bringing in all the revenue, and we're profitable. What are you doing now? And don't forget that. Don't forget that without them, you wouldn't be where you are today. And it's a very easy thing to forget. You know, once you start making your own money and you're feeling successful, you can't people who got you there.
Right. Now, and I guess this is the last question I'll ask you about business stuff
I
from my
lost you there
standpoint. But
for Andreas.
oh, we good? Are we back? Oh, we
Can
might
you
be.
hear
I
me?
might have. Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me? Are we back?
Okay.
Okay, I think we might have lost. Let's see. Okay, cool. We're both in. We're both back. Are we all good?
I think you can hear me, but I lost you for a second there. I
Okay.
was just talking about don't forget about how important the money person is when you start having success because remember I have 5 mentors in my life and my business partners that helped me get to where I am today. And even today I call them, they're like 70 years old and thank you so much, and they're like, thank you, Javed. We appreciate, they have to hear, how important they are to you. And they have to know that they had value to you. And I think it's super important to not forget people who help you get to where you are today.
Yeah, 100%. Um, I wanted to ask you one last question about
Sure,
business, and then we can get into
sure.
self-luster and stuff. Words of advice on finding, because at the beginning you mentioned like making sure you have the revenue or like the runway that you mentioned it. Um, w- w- I mean, investors tips on how to prepare your business to be to be invested on, and any advice that you learn from that standpoint of like if you're going to start and you need to rather go gather money, um, do's and don'ts for that. Any advice on that?
We didn't have to do that too much because again, my partners and I kind of, put in all our money,
Oh right, yeah.
yeah, but we didn't have to chase. But I would tell you that, look, it's very tempting, and you see this all the time where people who start businesses start ramping up their expenses way too fast. You know,
Mm.
they have to get the Amex Platinum card the first year. Well, you don't need that, really, or you don't need to be dining out at the most expensive places because you feel like the business is paying for it. You can still share a room with your business partners if you have to, right? I mean, there's all these things, that you learn from the book field to kind of manage your expenses. That does
Yeah.
not go away, when you start a business. Just because you own a business doesn't mean it's an open till, right? It means you have to be even more cautious with how you're spending money because it's very important. The other tip I would give you when you start a business, it's very tempting when you get into things and you have a little bit of momentum. Most businesses don't die from starvation, they die from indigestion. Okay. And what that means is people tend to get distracted. They tend to get, oh, well, we got a little bit of revenue here. Let me go try this venture. Let me go try that venture. Let me go invest in this. And the reality is that creates indigestion, right? Which means you're taking
Mhm.
on too much. Stay focused in your lane. Stay focused where you want. And the analogy I would give you here is, as a child, do you have a kid yet, Andreas?
Not yet.
Okay.
No.
Well, I have 2 little kids, and anyone out there listening who has kids, do you remember when your kids were like little, 4, 5, 6 years old, where they'd get up and they'd say, "Dad, can we go to Disneyland?" They're like, "Yeah, we'll go sometime." And then 1 minute later, like, "Dad, can I have a lollipop?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, okay." Then like 30 seconds, like, "Dad, can we go to the park?" Right? I mean, all within a span of a couple minutes, they had many wants. Okay.
Yeah.
You remember that? Even you doing that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I mean, yeah, and my
Right?
nephews and stuff. Yeah.
But I think as adults, we don't get away from that habit, right? The moment we get up, well, we want a new car, we want a new girlfriend, we want this, we want that, all within a few minutes. And so when people say, "Well, how do you make your goals?" Well, it's because we don't allow ourselves to get rid of that minutia and say, "I'm going to focus on one or two things that I really want." Okay? We tend to
Mm,
start dreaming and, things, all these different wants, but the reality is stay focused on what you really want, you know? And the old saying is, if you don't know what you really want, why would anyone else give it to you? I mean, the reality
ooh,
is, right?
ooh, that's good. Write that down, kids.
you know, I can tell you that most people I talk to, and if I ask this question, Andreas, is if you worked really, really hard at something, you didn't give up, you really persisted, okay, right? And you
Yeah.
really, really wanted it. Can you tell me in your lifetime you didn't get it?
No.
Exactly.
Yep.
Remember that. Remember that principle that whatever we really, really want, not what we think about for the 30 million things we want before coffee, what we really want, okay? We work hard towards it, we dedicate our energies toward it, and we don't give up. Can you look back in your life and say, you know what? I didn't get it. And I can tell
No.
you the answer is no, I've gotten everything I really, really wanted.
Hmm.
So I'm
That's
sorry,
right.
I go off tangents a little bit,
No,
but I'm just trying to.
that's brilliant. No, that's great advice. Just because it speaks to the mentality, right? It speaks to the focus you have to have. It speaks to the keeping the main thing, right?
Mm.
It's being careful with not getting too far ahead of yourself, right? All this mentality of focus and eyes on the prize, and if you miss by a little bit, you still, like we talked about, we're still going from London to New York, but just knowing what you want instead of, oh my gosh, we have a faster boat, let's go everywhere. No, just keep going to New York. And then you
That's
can
right.
talk about
That's
going
exactly
elsewhere.
right,
That's
Andre.
brilliant.
Yeah, and I'm sharing this with you because I know there's probably people out there that I don't have all the answers, but I can tell you these are some of the things that I think about in terms of what's helped me in life, and what I still can. I mean, even today, I still like, oh, I got to improve on that, and I got to be more focused, and I got to really decide what I want. I mean, even today that happens, right? So it's not like an end all be all thing. It's a lifelong challenge of the things that you want. But I would tell you, if you just focus in on a couple of things that are important and you just kind of move in that direction, I would be hard pressed to believe you're not going to get
I'm loving what you're saying. This is really good. Thank you
it.
so much for your wisdom. This is great. um Maybe let's wind the clock back a little bit and go back to some Southwestern stuff. And I'm
Okay.
sure things will come up from the present
Okay.
as well as we navigate through this, because it naturally happens. I normally ask about your recruitment story. We kind of got a good bit of that, or we kind of the idea of that, but um, we kind of glossed over the actual career. So let me take you back to your first summer. Do you remember? Do you remember your first door? Like, do you remember your first like original experience of this? Do you have? Because for me, it's still really vivid, and we found that normally it's pretty vivid memories for people who come on the show. But is that something you still hold on to?
I don't remember. I just remember being cold with the shower. I
Where did
remember
you go?
I
Where did
was
you
in
sell?
Ohio, Youngstown, Ohio.
Youngstown. That's what I said. Okay, yeah.
I remember that. I don't really remember the first door per se, but I do remember, um, when I remember not getting into doors. I do remember that, and I remember I had to call Jay, my student manager. I said, "I'm just not getting in the doors, man. What's going on?" So, well, let me come follow you. So he follows me, and he goes, Javed, I figured out what your problem is. I go, what? What is it? Tell me. I'm curious. He goes, well, I have to tell you, the black leather jacket and the sunglasses are not going to help you get in the door. So can you imagine? I'm wearing shorts, a black leather jacket, sunglasses. Hey, I'm this good looking kid, coming to sell you books. And they're like, no, you look like you're ready to rob me, So that was definitely the magic to help me change getting into doors.
You look like the guy from the Michael Jackson,
That's right.
Beat It
I
video.
look,
What are
I
you
look
doing
like,
knocking on my door?
I look like Vinny, Vinny, hey, I'm coming to sell you some books.
Hey, hey, you want to buy some books?
Yeah.
That's so
So,
fun. So you go through this summer experience. Was there ever a moment during that first summer where you thought, because your two roommates quit, you mentioned that. Did you ever have that thought of like, I'm going home. This is not for me, or was it pretty clear throughout?
um, first of all, I don't, I mean, of course, I think you go through your natural feelings of wanting to quit. I think I got
Yeah.
a little off schedule at the end, but I don't ever remember saying I'm going to get in my car and go home. I just don't remember feeling that.
Mm,
I just remember, look, the reality is, and the reality is that when I was growing up and going to high school, I was from an immigrant family, Andreas.
yeah.
I just felt pretty naive in a lot of things. I mean, I'm just being open. Like, I didn't really go to the football games in high school. I didn't go
Mm,
to all the things that kids were doing that were my contemporaries as an immigrant kid. And I just remember, that what I remember, my dad was an engineer. I remember we used to hang around with a lot of doctors and business people. So I remember, like, well, I want to kind of be wealthy like them. I want to have that what they have. So it's something, we're kind of a product of what we don't have, not a product of what we get. But I
mm,
just remember that, and I just remember that I don't. I mean, of course, I probably thought about quitting. I just never really thought about quitting.
yeah.
I'm just like, okay, I'm just gonna. This is fine. I don't mind the rejection, and I liked selling because I had done it at Kenny Shoes. So it was fun in the way. And once I got comfortable with it, I'd go into people's kitchens and say, hey, what do you have for dinner? I started having fun with it.
Yeah.
And really connecting with people in a way that I felt like I was, it was nice. I just remember all the nice people out there. I remember that. I remember all the kindness I felt.
Yeah. Well, and let me ask you about that. I'll follow up with that in just a second. I wanted to follow up with something you said about being an immigrant child and understand your parents were from Pakistan,
That's
and
right.
then you were born in
Immigrated to Canada.
Toronto.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Toronto and
Okay.
then to Houston.
And then in Houston. So growing up with that, I mean, and I'm speaking from maybe this is me as an
Mhm.
immigrant myself. Part of the reason I really wanted to do well in Southwestern, because I'm like you, I never really had a real thought of quitting. I mean, everybody thinks of what it would be like to go home, right?
Mhm.
But nobody actually, there was never a point where I was like, I'm getting in my car, I'm out of here, unless someone like, and the
Right.
DSM calls and
Right.
magically intervenes. Never had that experience, but I do remember thinking, if my parents could move to another country, could find a way to make it, and could give me a relative level of success, and by relative, relative, I can do this for 3 months. That drove me extremely, like a lot. Did you ever have that feeling of wanting to do it for your parents, or like to pay them back, or even for the fact that just proving to yourself that you can do something difficult too? Like, did you ever have some of that? Because I
Yeah,
mean,
I
I
did have a
experienced it a
lot. I
ton.
had a lot of that actually. I mean, I was a middle child,
Mm,
and my brother was, I thought he was kind of one of those mover and shaker type of guys, and my dad would. I felt he was a very successful engineer. He was not he was more of a manager, project manager. So I always admired his success in terms of what he was able to accomplish. Moving from a different country. So I was driven with a lot of ambition, and in high school, I mean, again, I went to a school that I think I was one of two minorities, really, and they
mm,
didn't let me into the Young Republicans Club at the time. Not that I care now about that, but at the time, they didn't really accept me, for who I was, and
sure.
those things really, really motivated me because then I said, okay, I'm going to show you, you know, I'm going to show you that I can do this and that uh, you're underestimating who I am as a person, And I was very driven by proving that to someone, And not that I even talked to anyone from high school. I mean, it's how we create these images in our mind,
Yeah.
but it's, they're no part of my life today. But how much that has driven me in my life is pretty incredible, I think, in a lot of ways.
That's phenomenal. And that I totally relate so much to that, because I mean, I almost feel seen, because I understand what you mean. It's like, you
Yeah,
watch me.
yeah.
Oh, tell me I can't, I swear. Kind of like you said,
I'm,
it's that
I did.
takeaway thing. It's like,
Yeah, I did this, and I did it. One of the things I did in high school as part of that, piss off thing is, our class president. I took his girlfriend to my prom just to really get under his skin because he was one of the worst of them, you know? And so I do, I had a lot of that, what I call passive aggressive. I got to prove it to you. And, I got to get out there and make this happen. And
I love it.
a lot of that was very driven by that emotion,
Yeah. Did you ever find that people, while you were selling door to door, had a reaction to, your race, your background, like from even after you introduced yourself? Did you run into any of that?
No, one of the things, and I don't think a lot of people, we have these discussions at home sometimes and there's not agreement on it. I just never walked into a situation thinking someone's looking at me or treating me different. I mean, you'd have to slap me in the face for me to recognize it. I mean, really, even today, I'm like, da, da," and then I'd think, oh, well, wait, they said something that would have been considered inappropriate, but
Yeah.
it just
Yeah.
doesn't, I just never walk into a situation thinking that. Does that make sense? I mean,
Yeah.
I used to think my nicknames as a fine carpet salesman was awesome, but, I thought, well, that's cool, but again, that had a tone that I'm from a different country, right? But I never
Right.
looked at it maliciously. I mean, I always looked at it as endearing, Um,
Yeah.
but any of those type of things that happened on the book field or with the managers, um, I never felt that way. I never walk into a situation thinking they're going to be, because it's kind of like what they call a reticular activation, I think, is what you pay attention to is
Hmm.
what you notice. So I just
Yeah.
don't even let those things kind of seed in my mind.
Hmm.
Um, and so I just kind of let it go.
Yeah, and I appreciate that mentality a lot. If you look for it, it'll find you for sure. You
Right.
know.
And then it kind of
Um,
creates a crutch for you too, Andreas, right? If you delve
yeah.
into the thought, if you kind of look for it, then you're almost giving yourself an excuse on why you shouldn't be able to do something or can't do something. And that, our mind plays those tricks on us all the time. You kind of have to be your best lawyer at sometimes, like, well, why am I thinking that?
Yeah.
What's making me feel that way? So you're right.
No, absolutely. I mean, and that's not to say that the people don't face challenges like that in real, like actually, in real, like the people out there are not always, you know, uh, able to enjoy uh, that mentality. For example, we had people on our show who it was very clear that race was playing a major role into their experience. Right, we had a Delissa Allen sold in a town where she's black. She sold in a town where there was like active KKK members, and she knocked on one of their doors. But
Mm,
the way that she tells the story is kind of what you're saying, and the similar idea, but it was more like, hey, look, these are the circumstances of the world, and people are going to be how they're going to be in my life, and it's not up to me to determine or to let them, it's up to me to let them not affect me, but at the same time it's not up to me to try to tell them how to be. I just have to deal with it, because there's always going to be people like that, right? But there's
mm,
always going to be kindness as well. And so, assuming, kind of going, like you said, walk into a situation assuming that things are okay, that it's going to be fine, that has a lot to do with how people do perceive you, because there's a confidence in that, knowing, hey, you can't hurt me. There's nothing you really are going to say or do that's going to offend me. And even if you do say something offensive, I'm not really going to care. So
mm,
do your best or do your worst. And either way, I'm going to be giving you my best, regardless of what happens. And
mm.
that's a super cool mentality to have, that I appreciate that you bring up, because that goes a long way. And
Yeah, I
so,
mean, it's very true, Andreas. Look, uh, it is out there. It is definitely a challenge for a lot of people. I'm not trying to in any way minimize that.
yeah, yeah.
So, and you see it and it happens, but again, don't allow it to bring, to give yourself a reason not to persist or proceed or move forward is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, and that's what I'm getting from you is it, whether it's out there, whether you face it or not, just embrace it, right?
Yeah.
And I love what you said about celebrate, and as a Colombian, people, oh, do you got that stuff with you, and scratch their nose, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like, that could be considered like, and so they probably even mean that in sometimes some people I've met in Nebraska growing up, sure. But at the same time, I'm like, you know what? I go, yeah, actually, Pablo Escobar is my cousin, but I don't really, I just give it, I just make it I own it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, that's part of what I'm going to be known for my entire life, right? We all watch Narcos, and so I
Mhm.
go, might as well make a joke out of it instead of, oh, people
You're
that
absolutely correct.
have
Fabian
cocaine.
Corzo. You know Fabian Corzo?
Yeah, yeah.
I recruited him into the business, so
Oh, okay.
I'm
That's
very
awesome.
familiar with. Yeah, so that's cool. That's really neat.
Yeah, I invited him. He wanted to be on the show at some point. His daughters, or one of his daughters,
Candace,
sold. Yeah,
Candace is his wife, and then Carolina is his daughter.
yeah, they sold books, and or she's still selling, I think, even. So
They call
yeah,
me
cool
grandpa.
family.
Yeah, they call me grandpa 'cause I
You
got them
are in a
started.
way.
Yeah, exactly. It's 3 generations.
So that's awesome. As you're going through your summers, after that first experience, you must have had a blast because you decided to come back for 4 more. How did you your um acumen grow as you went through the program, as you went into the recruiting stuff? How did you find that experience of recruiting and the management side of things?
Okay, so my second summer was tough, because that's when
Uh,
you know what to expect. Yes,
yeah,
but
it's
I
harder.
managed it. Yeah, it's harder. But I think what I loved about Southwestern is I loved learning about how to be successful. You know, I loved the camaraderie that came from it, and the relationships that you're able to build. I loved Tom Boyd. I mean, I really loved who he was as a person, and I still, have a lot of respect for Tom Boyd. So those are the things that kind of brought me back, um, and I liked recruiting. I had a lot of fun with it. I I was able to go to the recruiting department at U of H and talked the lady into giving me all the resources I needed to, use a recruiting office, and she gave me an office there to have kids come in and I could interview them and stuff. So I really enjoyed that, the whole aspect of it. I just wasn't very good at what I call the management or the leadership style of it. It took me, and I still learn today, but took me many many years to figure out how to lead people and manage them well. I mean,
Mm,
manage, I don't like the word manage because it alludes to control. Lead is more like follow, so leadership is really the right word.
yeah.
So yeah, I mean, second summer I think I didn't really bring any, maybe a couple people, and then third summer I brought some people.
Mm.
um, I used to be able to get a lot of people to the interviews. That was what I think Tom Boyd always liked. I could just fill a whole room. Were they good quality candidates? Probably not, but I was able to, um, and so I had some teams. I think the last year was like 10 recruits or something. They all kind of washed
Wow.
out, except for maybe 8 or 9 recruits, and except for maybe 2 or 3 kids kind of lasted the summer, which I really liked, and they were great guys.
That's
And
so fun.
Fabian sold for a couple summers, I think 2 or 3, and then he recruited his brother Tomas,
Yeah.
Corzo. I remember being at Fabian's house, and I'm doing the parent visit, and I'm talking to his mom and dad, and Tomas walks by with a book just like this. He's walking by, and he's reading How to Win Friends and Influence People. And I'm like, I'm like,
Yes.
I'm like, I'm like, Tomas, have you heard this? And his mom looked at me and said, "You only get one." I said, "Okay, I guess I got Fabian." Like, shit, I would have loved to have Tomas the first year too. But anyways, that's how it works out. But no, we enjoyed. Tomas was always part of the organization, and I worked with him for a summer or two, and then Fabian, and then his sister, and Matt Merritt, I remember, and Mark
Wow.
Upchurch. So there's a few really, Jason Ruby. There's some really great kids at that time. They're not kids anymore. But I was terrible at it. I didn't really understand the principles of how to help them get what they want, how to teach them. I was dedicated
Yeah.
to doing whatever they needed, but that's different than leading them to what they want and how to help them, get to the next level.
It's tough. It's tough to really, w- especially if it's something where it's like such a systematic thing where it's like just do this, and if it doesn't work, then you're like, what am I missing? It's hard, when you're trying to do it from scratch, maybe it's a little easier, but when you're trying to teach someone how to use a system that you have learned and they don't get it, it just, what do I do? Like,
Yeah,
how do I help? So it's not an easy thing to do, to lead people, especially in sales and in business.
right.
So that's definitely for sure.
One
Now,
of the
as
things.
you're,
Go ahead.
oh, go ahead, go ahead.
No, go ahead, please.
No, I was gonna say, as you're going through these summers and kind of trying to grow this base, the was there ever a time that they had a moment where you're like, aha, I kind of figured this out, and like, was there a moment where it really clicked for you, in that regard? Still,
Never.
still worked on it.
I mean, I think I went through between Tom James and the business I'm in and Southwest, probably 30, 40 people. I mean, those poor souls had to put up with me. I think I finally figured out, over the last last 5, 6, 10 years. But those first, I mean, it's very challenging to go from a strong type A sales mentality to slow it down and coach. And it's a very difficult thing to do. I mean, I always admired the book folks that were able to do that. I really did. Even at Tom James, the ones that were the type A stud top salespeople and how they manage people, it was really pretty phenomenal.
Yeah,
But the reality is, it takes almost two different characters to do well at, to do both, right?
yeah,
I mean, type A sales is great. That's your producer. But um, being a good leader is a little more methodical, a little more intuitive. It's not a numbers game. You're not on a clock. You don't have a 10-minute for a presentation. Does that make sense? I mean,
yeah,
there's a lot of things that require, it's about relationship to be of service, not relationship to take advantage. There's a whole different mentality around that.
yeah,
So it takes a lot of understanding, and a lot of practice, and putting your heart in the right place. And there's only a few good leaders I've ever really met, that really understand that concept of, it's goals aligned, vision aligned. If you help someone else with what they want, it automatically aligns with yours.
yeah,
They're not usually separated ever, right? So whatever you're trying to do to help someone else, it's usually in alignment with what you're trying to achieve. But the reality of the situation is that at the end of the day, whether they work with me or they don't, am I going to help them anyways? And the answer for me is yes. And that's the genuine level of leadership that I admire and look for, and want to be.
mm,
They don't have to
brilliant.
work for me to be their great leader. They can be somewhere else. I can work with them 10 years if they want to go somewhere else, and I'm able to help them get to that next level or take that next step, and I'm not going to personally benefit from that. So be it. That's okay, right? That's the
Yeah,
type of leader I aspire to want to
that's brilliant. Oh, Javed, you're awesome, man. I'm so
be.
happy to be speaking with you. Um, how did you know it was time to go? I mean, why not 6 summers and why not 4? You know what I'm saying?
They
How did
wanted
you
me to
know
do
it was
more of the
about time?
recruiting, obviously, and that just didn't
Yeah,
really, obviously, I enjoyed it, but I wasn't very successful at it. And and I thought it was just time to move on, time to, um, time to go do what I needed to do. I mean, I think it's just sometimes you feel it, and you know what confusion is, right? It's when your mind and your gut feeling are opposing each other. So I go with my
oh,
gut feeling.
I love that. If anything, write that down, kids.
Yeah. So gut feeling is really kind of how I like to lead. We can talk ourselves in and out of everything all day long, and that's kind of what gets us in trouble. But go with what you feel, because more than likely that is the right decision.
That's the right choice. I love it. Okay, so let's do this. I have some rapid fire questions for you. This is a little
Okay.
segment we'd like to do, and then we go
Okay.
into some ponytails. Is that okay? So
Okay.
some of your favorite
Absolutely. Hey,
memories,
you're the boss.
and then this might help you strike some memories. So you might come up with several ponytails. So it could be a bunch of. I mean, we as much time as you want to give us. We'll take as much as you
Okay.
feel like being here. But okay, so number one, favorite territory out of the 5 summers that you sold. Where was the favorite like state that you went to or town?
I enjoyed Iowa. Yeah.
Interesting.
I
Oh,
enjoyed Iowa.
as
There was
as a
just something special
Nebraskan, I'm
about
like,
that. No,
yeah,
no, I enjoyed Iowa, Cedar Rapids, Iowa. I have a lot of good memories of Cedar Rapids, Iowa. You know.
Yeah.
I
Which
also
summer was
enjoyed
that for you?
Knoxville, quite frankly. But I mean, I really enjoyed. I think it was my third summer. I think
Mm.
and so there's you're kind of over your first, your second, and the third. You're just kind of in the groove. You get it, and I think that that really made a big difference for me.
I love that. Okay. What type of turf did you prefer? Big brick, country, suburbia? What was your bread and
Um,
butter?
I like the country, but in the country there'd be like certain roads or certain little neighborhoods, that where
Yeah.
not all the houses are 5 miles apart, but you're driving in the middle of nowhere and there's like a little complex of or subdivision of 40 homes.
Yeah.
I love that. That situation was always very
Yeah.
nice because you get to know
Yeah.
everyone in the neighborhood.
Yeah, and everyone's super nice because they don't get guests like door to
That's
door
right.
often.
That's right.
And also, because everyone's nice, generally, if it's kind of a little bit more developed like that, not huge, but just a small, it's also not super low income, but it's super not high income. So
That's right.
the money objection is a little less, and the
That's right.
education investment is a little higher. Yeah,
Yeah. So
it's
I always
great
like those.
territory.
I always like those areas.
Beautiful. I love that answer. This is my favorite too. You're like, oh, you met everyone. So by the time you got down through that town, you knew everyone. You knew like who's
That's right.
getting divorced. You know what kids were getting
That's
kicked out
right.
of school. You
That's
knew
right.
what who was the stud of the who's the quarterback of the team.
Yeah.
That's great stuff. Did you ever have a favorite advanced sales tape that you listened to over and over as you were selling?
Um, I love the music. I play the music tape. If everyone
Yeah,
remembers that, I used to enjoy playing that. Advanced sales tapes. Honestly, I don't. I mean, that's been so long. I don't. I'm
sure, that's
sorry,
okay.
Andres. I don't remember any of the specific names of the advanced sales tape. But if you're talking about people that I enjoyed listening to or learned from, it was Dan Moore. I always
Yeah,
enjoyed learning from him, and I really enjoyed learning from David Dean. Um,
Dave Dean.
on Now Is Your Time to Win and kind of
Yeah, the
yeah. So
book.
those were very influential for me, and I really enjoyed learning from those two folks.
Yeah, Dan Moore. I mean, what we've talked about him quite a bit here on the show, but I mean, the ability to remember you, to just really like know you well and see you is unmatched from
Yeah,
that
it's
I've
pretty
met anyway.
impressive. I've always liked Dan. And
Yeah,
Lee
Dan's amazing.
Murkowski was fun. He was just more of a punk rocker type dude, and I wasn't really a punk rocker, so we didn't have that connection. But anyways,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, if you saw Lee now, he's the funniest dude still.
All right, cool.
He helps us host our other podcast,
Does he?
Executive Exercises. Yeah,
Oh, cool. Well, I'd
and
love to see
he's fun. And his
that.
episode too, I'd recommend checking it out on here.
I
It's
will.
funny. Okay, favorite product to sell? Little kids books, volume libraries that you were selling at the time. What was your
I
favorite
love
thing
I
to
love the My Fun books. Those were the
Yeah,
easy sales with the cassette tape. It just had such an incredible value, in my opinion, for anyone who was buying it. Right? It's kind of like a brainless decision. Like come on.
yeah.
And so that was my favorite product. You know, um, I did sell the handbooks, but it was kind of my least favorite because I always felt like it was I'm selling a dictionary.
Yeah.
Um, but and then the quick books were the quick sales, for the grandma that felt
You
bad
ever
for
saw
you.
grandma, you're like, here we
Yeah,
go.
yeah, right. So yes,
So good.
those. But my fun book was kind of the easy one.
I loved it. I loved it. Out of your 5 summers, your favorite overall summer? Like, if you could go back and relive a summer.
If I had to go back and relive it, man, I have such nice things of all of them. I liked Cedar Rapids. I thought that was the
Still
coolest
back
summer.
to
Yeah, I
cool.
really loved it.
Yeah.
I mean, West Virginia was fun. Knoxville was fun. Kansas was good.
We
But
hear about
I,
West Virginia. We hear a lot of good news about West Virginia on here. A lot of people love
yeah,
West Virginia.
yeah, it was just the hollers, and it was kind of a cool place.
What a culture. It's almost a different country, West Virginia.
Yeah,
It
it
sounds
is a different country, and I remember I would always say some of the dogs had more teeth than some of the people. That was just a very strange thing for me. But yeah. I remember one lady, she comes out and she takes this huge, spit and wipes her hand like this. And how are you? And then reaches out to shake my hand. I'm like, you really want me to shake your hand after you just wiped your spittoon on your face? I mean, geez, come on. But
That's
you know,
so
I
funny.
remember meeting a lady that was in Harvard. That was a Harvard graduate. And I drove in this long hauler, and there's a bus. There's two buses. Like a compound of buses, and an outdoor shower with a ring, and like some big old John Deere tractor out in the field. And I'm like, hey, I'm selling education books. And she said, look at me, kid. She was kind of mean. She says, I'm from Harvard. You know, I don't need your education books. You know, and that tractor out there, I own it. And I'm like, well, then why do you live in a bus? I mean, I was really kind of very confused with the whole. I didn't say that, but it was kind of.
Right. It's like
But you meet some very interesting people in West Virginia, just to say the least.
so good. Oh man. What was your best sales day, whether in terms of units or just from a standpoint of your, like, when you look back, is there a day that you recall that you're like, man, that was my best day, whether you met the fun family or you sold a lot or anything like that?
Gosh,
Best day.
best day. I
It
can tell
can be
you
your
my
last one.
well, it can be, but I think my best day is anytime I ever saw Albert Sag at checkout mad at me for beating him because he used to like get very competitive with me, and he would
Yes.
be beating me all throughout the whole summer, right? And I was very good at deliveries. I was very good at. I would always be. I'd sell like 900 units more on top of what I was selling, and he would go, "Oh man," and he would get so upset that I would beat. And I loved. That was probably the best feeling I ever had. Is Albert saying, "They annoyed that I would always beat him at the end." You know?
You gotta love that. When you
I
when
love
you
it.
have someone, when you have a target on someone's back, especially if they beat you the year before or something,
Yeah.
or the
Yeah.
week, or oh, and
He was
you go to
fun. He was
check
fun.
out.
We'd always be neck and neck, and right at the end, I'd pull away by 800 or 900 units, and he'd go like, "How do you do that?" I'm like, "Well, I'm good at deliveries. You know, just think about you the whole time."
Because there's always that one person that you're like, I don't care if I beat anybody else, but there's no way
Yeah,
that
Albert Sag
that
was a
person.
guy. Albert Sag was the most. That was probably the best, in terms of the best feeling. The other feeling
Yeah.
is going into Nashville. I mean,
Oh my gosh,
after,
yes.
and then going through the checkout process is fine, but you get to see people. Going to the warehouse to drop off the damn books you were lugging around for 1,000 miles. I mean, those are great feelings. As far as I'm
Some
good, I'm happy.
accomplishment.
I'm driving home, with my check in the glove box, basically, with my feet out the window, listening to Fleetwood Mac. I mean, it's
Yeah.
those memories that have a lot to me. I mean, in terms of the job itself, I mean, of course, I met great people and I met great families, um, and they're also kind. The one that I always remembered that was a little more heartfelt is when the lady said, "I'm going to buy these books. Can you grab my checkbook?" So I went and got her checkbook, and she says, "I don't know how to write, so can you please fill out the check for me?" And she signed it with X's and O's. And I felt like, wow, this lady's willing to buy books for her grandchildren because she doesn't know how to read or write. I mean, that's kind of emotional that way. I mean, you feel like, wow, I had to write the check out for the lady, you so that's one of my
Oh,
favorite memories in terms of, well, then
yeah.
you feel like at some point you're adding some value, to people's lives.
Yeah, and that always felt good when you're like, these people are for sure going to be using these books.
Yeah,
I made a difference by being here, by knocking on
yeah,
your door 20
exactly.
minutes ago. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
really cool.
yeah,
The the feeling of driving into Nashville, oh man, I don't know if I felt that good since, man. I mean, I Messi winning the World Cup would be pretty cool, but
yeah,
I mean, when you leave the last house or when you leave the bank with the cashier's check and you're
yeah.
going, the next time I get out of my car for a long time, besides gas, is going to be at the company.
All right.
That
It was a great
feeling.
feeling, right? Everyone
Oh,
happy, congratulating you. And by the way, Morocco should win the World Cup, Andreas, just so you know.
fair
I
enough.
mean,
Fair enough.
okay.
Fair enough.
um, I'm going to pitch for Morocco because, I'm going to go for the underdog.
Yeah.
Um,
I hope they beat France so Messi has it on paper at least a little easier. But if they beat France, they're probably a better team than France because they're also better than Spain and Portugal.
well,
So I
what's
don't even know
what's
if there's a
interesting is
better
that,
choice there.
it's got a deep-seated history, right? I mean, France occupied Morocco, right? So
Yeah.
in some ways, this is kind of an interesting
There's like a
Uh,
political, yeah.
there's a
There's more
political
to it than just
aspect
a
to it.
game. Yeah.
Yeah, which I find kind of fascinating. But anyways, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. It's been, yeah. I've been watching. It's been wild.
that's good.
Okay, and then the last rapid fire question is your favorite breakfast spot.
Iowa again. There was this lady. It was in there was a breakfast spot which was really cool in Cedar Rapids. They had this little shopping thing, but it was over the bridge. So you had a bridge right over the river, but all the stores were over the bridge, and there was a little
Oh,
breakfast spot there. So cute, just awesome. And we would just show up every morning. They'd have our breakfast ready. We do our executives
yeah.
outside, and we take off. But yeah, that was my favorite breakfast spot, right in Cedar Rapids, and it was on a bridge. I remember that over a river, right? So it was, or a little tributary or something. But it was really
That
kind of
is
neat.
so
That was
cool.
my favorite spot.
That's so cool. And it says, I'm trying to look for it. Enjoy Mamacita Tacos or something now. I'm looking for this place online to see if I could find it. I
Yeah,
like to
well,
find
it might have
breakfast spots
changed,
on
but it
here.
was a cool breakfast spot at the time.
That's so cool. I loved it when people, when you did executive exercises or like when you would show up to breakfast and they were already there because that just made you feel like part of home. We got my brother and I were able to get some of the people who served us breakfast to do execs with us
Oh, yeah, that's
because
cool.
they'd be like, "What are you doing?" And at some point, like, "Hey, at the end of the summer, you're gonna be doing this with us." And they go, "No way," But sure enough, August comes, or even sometimes late July, and you let's get
That's
to be a
awesome.
bookman.
That's awesome. That's
It's a
awesome.
good time. On a note from I'm trying to think like if I was looking into this, and for people who are listening who might be like, hey, this actually I want to learn more about this. What's the barrier to entry like? Maybe I'm sitting here and I'm like, man, that sounds cool, but I don't know shit about insurance. Like, why would I want to go talk to people?
Yeah, the barriers to entry, I think, are really pretty low. Everybody would probably have a different opinion, but in terms to just be able to get out the door and go sell, you've got to get a license. I have my life and health license because you needed the health license at Family Heritage, or if you want to sell Medicare products or certain types of health products, you
Right.
have to have the health side. But what it takes to get either one or both of those licenses is roughly the same. You take a study course. You may need to study for 15 hours. You may need to study as many as 30 hours. But like with Cardinal, we've got a pretty cool course. From studying to getting your license can be as quick as like 7 to 10 days if you really 15 to 20 if you're moving at a medium pace. And beyond that, if it takes you longer than that, you're just not really all that motivated to start because it's
Yeah.
not a difficult process.
Yo, let's get off schedule one last time. Go watch a movie, or maybe you should figure out how to work at EnLight.Energy. Alex Black is crushing it down there, and a former DSM, Julio Hernandez, are both running this company. And man, they are cranking 10 people on their team and growing. It's enough that Alex only has to sell like one thing every other week and make over six figures. So if you want to learn more about that and maybe help change the planet, click on the link below. Oh man, so cool. Well, Javed, do you mind if we go into some ponytails and maybe
Sure.
just continue picking your brain about some of the fun memories that you've had from the book field, or some of your favorite stories that you remember? I mean, I know you've shared some already, and they've been so fun to hear. But this is so people know who are listening, and if this is your first episode, the ponytails part of the episode is now we're moving towards the last phase, and it's usually sometimes it's anywhere from 10 to 30 minutes long. It just depends on how many stories we have to hear.
Mhm.
But it's where it's our guests favorite stories from the book field, whether it was a big customer that bought their favorite HQ spot, if it was just a really kind of like a heartfelt story, kind of the lady where you wrote the checkout to, something hilariously comical that you can't even like comprehend how it happened in real life. So I'll give the mic over to you. It could also be important lessons that you learned along the way, things that you still carry with you. But it's your call what you want to share with us here as I kind of wrap up. So take it away, my friend. It's been a pleasure.
Well, thank you. Again, it's been what, almost 30 years since I've sold books, man. So, and you got to go deep into the memory banks to remember. That's one of the things that I don't really think a lot about, those type of things. I'm always thinking about where I'm going, kind of things. I never really. Um, so, you know, I think some of the favorite stories is, when it's just the things I would do. I remember, you know, in Iowa. I don't know why it's my favorite place, but the thing that disgusted me is that, I just remember coming home tired as hell, after a full day of selling books. They had a kid that had some special needs, nice kid. They had some cats, and they gave us a room upstairs, for John Crab and I to sleep on a double together. I mean, it's the only time I find guys are that comfortable sleeping that close together. I think at that point you're just so damn tired, you
It
don't
doesn't
really
matter.
care.
It's
Yeah.
soft.
But for some reason, the cat would piss on the bed every single night, every day. And can you imagine having to come home, you're tired as shit, you don't have any additional sheets, and I just have to sleep in the cat piss. I'm like, I can't even fathom how John Crab and I slept in cat piss every freaking night. And it wasn't like once a week. It was like fresh every day. You're sweaty and you just drop down on the
It starts
I mean,
warm, it ends up cold.
yeah, I just don't understand how I did that.
It it helps you get encouraged for the cold shower.
That's right. And then
Like
we,
when
of
the
course
cold
you're not
shower is
wiping off
better.
any germs with your damn cold shower either, right? You're just
It's just
living in cat piss the whole summer.
by the end of the summer, you just have a yellow spot wherever the cat was. Like that's
I
how much
just,
you didn't wash it from the cold shower.
sometimes I can't. I look back and I said, how did I do that? How did you tolerate that?
Yeah.
Um, you
Do
know,
you when you tell your wife, I found this. My wife didn't sell books. Um, when you tell your wife about some of this stuff that comes up, kind of because it comes up all the time. You'll be driving and you just think of the most random thing from the book. Feel like, oh my gosh, this happened to me. What does she say when you try to describe this
I mean, in,
experience?
in the beginning when we were first married, I had a lot more memories of the book field, so I talked more
Yeah.
about it, and she'd be like, "Oh, it's cool," and but anyone who doesn't sell books, it's really difficult for them to relate, to what you're really talking about. Like, why is a chicken eating my pretzels as soon as I go knock, I run out of my car, I come back, there's a chicken eating all my pretzels. How the hell do you get a chicken out of your car eating your pretzels? Think about that, flying all in your car. And so, it's
Car
stuff like that,
problems.
it's just causing problems. One of my favorite memories is the summer I was with Tomas and Fabian in Knoxville. We had two houses next to each other, and that was a favorite. That was a nice time, because you get home and there was 6 or 7 of us, not just, two of you.
Yeah, that's gonna be
Uh,
fun.
so that was always really nice memories. Um, the scariest memory I had was when I was trying to get in my 30 demos a day. I remember this guy, I'm like, oh, Clint, someone's like, hey, you gotta hit your 30. So I'm driving around, I pull into a gas station, I pull out a cookbook, you know, and this guy sitting in his truck kind of off to the corner. I'm like, oh, great. You know, being a woof, oh, this is good. I'll go to that guy in the truck.
In the
So
dark.
yeah. I'm like, hey, I'm just trying to, I'm trying to get my 30 demos in. I just want to show you this quick cookbook. I mean, no value in what we're doing, right? It's just action over, activity with no value, right? So the guy just looks at me. I remember him looking at me, and I remember this look. And he takes his fist and he punches the window in front of him, and the whole windshield cracks, right? I'm like,
Wow.
uh, okay, I'm like, I'm sorry, and I just turned around right away and left. So that was kind of the scariest moment. The most uncomfortable moment I had is I can't remember what town this is. A lot of the guys talk about women hitting on them and stuff like that. So
Mhm.
I'm out in Kansas, I think, and it's hot as hell. The fumes off the tar. And you're running down the street, and I just go in. And I knock on this guy's door. He answers the door. His kids are home, and he goes. I go, listen. I'm like, here's what I'm doing. Can I get a glass of water? And he goes, yeah, sure, come on in. So he gets me a glass of water. So I sit down, and normally I'd read the kind of like pick up the paper or kind of look at whatever, kind of just I'm glancing at the paper. And first of all, I'm really pissed off because it's like 110 degrees outside, and the guy gives me tap water. He doesn't even put
Oh my
ice in it.
gosh.
I'm just like, it's like drinking fire with fire. You're like, what the hell's wrong?
Yeah.
But later on, I discovered what he was thinking. So I'm sitting there and I'm just kind of like, doing my, and he's looking me up and down, you know, and and uh, and I'm like, okay, well, that's kind of weird. And then he leans in and says, "You want to mess, you want to go mess around, or something like that."
What?
And I'm like, I almost dropped the the cup. I get up right away, and I've never been hit on by that in that way, right? I mean,
Yeah,
again,
and this
naive
is
here.
1990
It's
something. Like this
1990,
is
whatever, two,
not
whatever. This
normal.
guy's
Yeah.
hitting on me, right? I'm like, no, that's okay. And so I leave his house, and okay, I'm running down the street, still thirsty as hell, obviously. I'm like, and I
Yeah.
see this guy come up in his car behind me. I'm like, oh crap, what is this gonna mean? He's gonna like shoot me? What's gonna happen here? Is he gonna like
Jeffrey Dahmer's still alive at this point. This
exactly?
guy's going
Like,
like, I just
what's
want
he
to take
gonna
some
do?
pictures.
So he pulls up next to me, and I just looking at him, and he's like, "Listen, I'm sorry. Can you not tell the neighbors? I'm like, dude, don't worry about it. We're good. And I just kind of moved on, and he did his own thing. But the least thing he
My
could have done is
gosh.
bought some books from me for hitting on me. But
Come on.
I
Yeah.
should have
Move.
said that actually. I said, listen, if you buy some books from me, I won't say a damn thing. Make them pay $300-400 for a whole set of books. That would have been the best thing to say.
Donated to the kid to the
That's
library or
right.
something.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. That's
That's pie in the eye was always fun on the weekends. With the competition, we'd have to stop at the grocery store. You buy the cheapest frozen pies you can find. So you can get them smattered all over your face.
great stuff.
So yeah, it was just overall, it was just a really. I have very fond memories of you know good things. If you look back in life, generally, you don't always think about the bad things, right? Unless you allow yourself to.
Yeah.
So my overall feeling of the program was good. I felt good
I
about it.
love it.
I felt like I learned how to be persistent. I learned how to talk to anyone I wanted to. It drives my kids crazy today. Like I just go introduce myself to whoever I want. So that I had confidence. Coming out of college that I didn't have to rely on someone else to make an income. I knew I could always go sell something. You always felt that confidence,
Yeah.
right? Um, and it just overall it was just a great experience. I mean, you just feel good. That was an experience and a memory I'll never forget, and it's a really great influential part of my life, and I have really no bad feelings on that program. I still wonder how I did it, and how did I go through that, and what did I mean, but I
Yeah.
don't know how I did it. I don't know, that's very how did you do that? I don't know, but I did it, and I'm so grateful to Mike and Tom Boyd and all the folks that helped me be successful there and believe in me. And so yes, I have very fond memories of the whole experience.
That is awesome. You know what? That is a perfect way. Those are closing thoughts. Is a great way to wrap this one up. First of all, great ponytails. That was good.
Thank you.
So good. Yeah, so good. And I want to say thank you so much for being on here. I want to say thank you for your time, and for really just. I like when we have episodes like this when they're philosophical and there's a lot more, not necessarily much about the details, but a lot more about the lessons learned and the things that you still carry with you. The things that you mentioned throughout were really wise, and so I want to thank you for sharing that with us and spending an afternoon with us. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Andres. I got a ton more of it. I could talk about it for hours, but if anyone needs anything, I'm always available to answer any questions or thoughts. It's always nice to give back. Again, I know that for sure where I am today would not be for 5 or 6 people who took a genuine interest to help me. And so, it's give back. I think that's really important.
Ah, that is so well said, my sir. Thank you so much. Guys, we're gonna wrap this one up. My name is Andres Gamboa. If you guys have a question for Javed, if you want to get a hold of him, reach out to us. We'll put you in contact. You can also go check out the Biscayne Hospitality on Instagram. You can find him on LinkedIn, Facebook. there's lots of ways to find to get a hold of people. But if you are completely lost, just message us on our platforms and we can get you to connected. Thank you so much for listening. We'll catch you guys on the next one. Like I said, my name is Andres Gamboa. I am your host. I will we'll be back later. Thanks so much. Bye, everyone.
Thanks.